Rani Chibor, Nele Taba Tenduni, Gone, Shua Taji, Nayan, DM Mikiba, Tendravi, and a top of Tamje, Leban, Duate, and a or Tadakina Malama, Goa in Tang, only top of Tamje, Leba Dune, that thing, but.
So then, here now, to listen to this teaching, it's essential that we have the right motivation. And the right motivation entails removing any kind of wrong ideas that we have about why we're taking these teachings, why we're listening, especially to a teaching like the Mahamudra, which we have to listen to with the right kind of attitude. So as it says in a verse, that we have to properly eliminate any of the wrong kind of ideas that we might have, and then listen to the teaching with a proper kind of attitude. So the wrong kinds of ideas to approach this kind of teaching would be initially, if we think we're going to listen to it with some kind of intention of achieving some kind of good in this life. If we think by listening to this teaching I'm going to improve my life in the present, then that's a wrong attitude and we need to eliminate that entirely. But then even in addition to that, we have to think that not only this life, but if we listen to this teaching with the attitude that in my next life I'll have some kind of excellent outcome, be born as a god or as a human with wealth and power and so forth, then that also is an incorrect kind of motivation for listening to the teaching. And then not only that, but on top of that, if we listen to the teaching, even with the attitude of wishing to achieve our own personal liberation from samsara, to free ourselves entirely from the sufferings of samsaric existence, then that attitude, that thought is also incorrect, is not sufficient, proper for listening to an instruction such as the Mahamudra.
Oh yeah. Autobataje lewa dunani taona saba kadiji gnyango re sana ane shidu saba sanda dembe nye o shidu saba sanda dembe nye ane arang kowe nezu kowe dunga kwata da dunga ji rangshindu tenne tenne ane teleji bi ngejong jewa tegi ane mibade paapani ane kajaji magan samje ndi samje 아니 동아지 동아다 교회 동아다 차와도지 동아 숨지 판산 매바 나데 아니 대위 배대와 준세자 매바 어 대단위 동아지냐 왜 섬전디 참제 동아 규단지 제와라 아니 단도지 아니 니지 학삼 동아 규단 제와라 자와 따라라기 차오 어 대체 토바 제바 다 자와 제발라 아니 가서래 랑알라나 메바 양다버 조베 산제주 공방 마도발라 아니 텔레션 예란다 좀비 공방 터나야 메 진세바의 연대 진세바 초르와다 연대 초르와다 토바 초르와 인장 아니 랑거트야 탐매진바 인장 다요 치도셔와 섬제 탐제가 좀도 안데 동아지나 왜 섬제 네 탐제 동아 규단제 와라 드라이브 치도 토잘라는 모양다 벌써 왜 산제 요 공부를 뭐지 진내제 토바 차기 어디 치도 안에 토바 제발라 안에 토제게 남양수 량고 그래 대양 안에 가래에서는 안에 갑자기 찾아쳐보 어서 안에 시도 삼바삼데 산 안에 가서래 산다 덴베니 세리가나 안에 삼바 자주 있으면 죽기나라 되냐 거와데 다 그런 것이 거예요.
So thus, here, what is the proper motivation? We need to think that right now we're in a samsaric condition, that is, we're entirely suffering by the different kinds of suffering. We're suffering under the control of mental afflictions and the karma that we've created. We experience ordinary kinds of suffering. We experience happiness transforming into misery and unhappiness. We're generally conditioned by being created by karma and mental affliction and suffer as a result of this. But just recognizing our own suffering and being concerned with that, again, is not an adequate motivation for taking this kind of teaching instruction on Mahamudra. Rather, we need to transfer that recognition that we have of our own suffering condition onto others and see that the limitless sentient beings that pervade the universe that pervade the entirety of space are like our old mother, our aged mother, and they are tormented by all of these different kinds of suffering, ordinary suffering, suffering of transformation, of happiness into suffering, the suffering of being created by karma and mental affliction. And we have to really examine that and have that recognition of their sufferings enter into our hearts, such that we become moved by that and driven to think, what can I do to be able to free them from all of these torments that they're undergoing right now? And then with that recognition and motivation, then we think that only if I become a true, perfect, fully awakened Buddha can I most effectively be able to lead all of these sentient beings from suffering. Even if I was to achieve the nirvana of an arhat, Shravaka arhat, that kind of nirvana would be simply a partial kind of liberation. I'd achieve some kind of peace for myself, but I would not have perfected myself by accumulating all of the good qualities and freeing myself from all of the even subtle kinds of obscurations that a Buddha has achieved. So therefore, I must become a Buddha, and so as to be most effectively be able to lead all of these suffering mother sentient beings to complete freedom from their suffering. So that's the kind of motivation that we have to have. We have to have bodhicitta, the aspiration to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings, in order to listen to teachings such as what is being given in this context, that is the Mahamudra.
Oh yeah, tinita ti jela, jengan lo la do chi semba tang de war xewa na ji chi me lo se ga la, da gunon te tam ji sang ne yang, ani nya ba tam ji ma cho ba. Nyambi tsela ani khande ju ko re sana do yi ga so leba rab du nye la yila song shi se leba re nye rab du nye ani yila song shi chane so wa na xin chane o che nyambi che ne ju juen su bo de song wa de ngai lo se ga la nyambi te ani lo la ma song ba ani o te jang ani si rang ge chen ba ma song ma o ta ni ne ju juen ne ka bu wa da ne xiao do wa da ne chima jen sumbo teki o chima teta dan denpa la ane dewar shewa namji chinji lo kumare si jengen lo la doshi senpa de dewar shewa namji chinji mo lo se ka la ane ne si jen sumbo teta cha yu go ne ane o teta cha xin ane tunjen du shi chu denpa tang ane zo kong du xeba ki ane o xin du senpa sama da nyan pe yun si ka re o So then the
rest of the verse says that we must listen with the right kind of attitude and then listen in the proper fashion also. And in that way, then we'll be blessed or empowered by Vajrasattva and the Buddhas. What this line then says is that when we listen to this teaching, it's indispensable to have that kind of bodhicitta motivation. But in addition to that, we have to listen in the proper fashion. That is, when we hear a teaching like this, we have to retain it. We have to be able to remember it and hold it in our minds. And then it's important that we not, first of all, receive it properly and get the meaning of it. And then once we've received it, we need to retain it, not lose it. And then, in addition, we shouldn't contaminate it or defile it with some kind of improper attitude or motivation for taking it and using it. So the example that is given in that case refers to like a pot or a vessel that you're pouring something precious into. The pot, if it's turned upside down, then the precious substance won't flow into the pot. If the pot has a hole in the bottom, then it'll just flow out without being retained in the pot. And then if there's some kind of contamination within the pot, some kind of defilements, then whatever you pour into it will become mixed with the defilements. So like that, we need to, first of all, have our minds open and to receive the teachings. Then we have to retain the teachings within our mind. And then once we've retained them, we need to not mix them up with something that's impure, improper. So if we do that, if we have the right motivation of bodhicitta, and then we listen in this proper way, then the verse says, then we'll be empowered or blessed by Vajrasattva and all of the Buddhas.
Oh yeah, that in the Kondo Shabaki, and Ondo Samu combatant in Yatang. I call you to my Navashi, you see 20 years, said, and Dobatam to do said, and a career, and should the Javalana Bayanda, but over Sanjay Comban, Tobak, Tom de Sabat and Digo Kuna Mayimba, Ondo Samu combat some 20 years. Nearly Tapatam, 20 years, Tobala Jagor Mado, and it's done, and a castle. Tibachambogi, Tamja Chamber Drubio Compound, Ani Compound Ruber Chapaki, Dan Tela, Ani Chinese Samaki, Dan Mana, Ani Drum Minu by Yinzang, Shidu Chavas, Chit Sanjay Compound Toba, Ani Toba, Toby Shidu, Ani Te Toba Chavala, Tetoji Lam Gomgore. Lam Gomba Chavala, Lam drove Gombaki, Dan de la, and a Dan Chabawachi Gogore. Dan Chabawa Carresana, and a Tijo Colo Shitan, Tori and Dan Dundan, or Tendiji Gore, or Tendijita, Sanjusabaki, Tendunyogo, Yinza. And a Lamzo to la Chinese time with them, Mania Patu such a meone, Timaza may be Gula. Wasn't the don't remember why Laba Ledu John Nature, doing the Doshi Sawa Tempa Che, said that Ledu Gala. Or just a Chanju Sembaji, Yina Yang, Sanjay Compound Ruby, Dan Chebaba, Tijo Kolo Shida, Tenaki dancing out to turn the Yakore. Tijo Kolo Shida. Tijo Kolo Shida Monetary. Tanjo with that.
So then here then when it says that we can't listen to this teaching with the attitude of wishing to achieve happiness in this life or achieve good results in the next life, such as being born as a god or a human, we have to qualify that because if one is striving to become a Buddha, then in order to achieve unexcelled true perfect awakening as your ultimate objective, it's necessary that we first achieve actually a good kind of foundation for that, which is being born in a situation where we're able to practice. So here then, it's essential that when we're listening to the teachings, we can't be motivated simply by the wish for good things to occur to us in this life, or simply by an attitude of wishing to achieve a good rebirth in the next life, having a pleasant life in the next life. But it's not the case that one is excluding that entirely and not having that as an objective in any way whatsoever. Rather, in order to become a Buddha, as we said, it's essential, it's necessary, indispensable, in fact, that we be born into a good condition. We have a good human life. We have all of the necessities that enable us to practice, external conditions, the internal conditions. And so having those or wishing to achieve those to serve as a foundation or platform for the practice of the path is not an incorrect motivation, but it should not be the just having them to enjoy as pleasure is the incorrect motivation here.
Oh yeah, that is into the or castle Rani Jibo. I know Kawata Dongaji Ranshindo Tone, Rani Chibo, I know Kawala Tabe Taba Tendunia or get up at the Pandier and Mado. Young Kawata Dongaji Ranshindo Tone, Tele giving Nizu Mena, Niji Jessa Meba in Zang. Or they Nizung Nava to go or they in Zang, or Kawata Nava June, Rani Chibo, and Koyudunga never ship a tabatinic logic up at the Diamando. Oh, Koyudunga, Kawata Dungaji and Shurichibin is the Diamache.
So thus, similarly, when we say that you shouldn't have the motivation here should not be the wish to achieve your own freedom from samsara, your own personal liberation. we again have to qualify that, because here what is being excluded is doing it simply for your own sake. In fact, in order to achieve Buddhahood, one has to have, of course, a renunciation of samsara in its entirety. One has to have developed a recognition and revulsion towards the defects of samsara. And then one also has to wish to achieve one's own freedom from that kind of samsaric condition, to achieve liberation. So we have to then qualify it by saying that one does indeed wish to achieve one's own liberation, but one's doing this again as a means to the end of achieving unexcelled true perfect awakening, not simply as an end in itself, trying to achieve one's own peace for oneself alone.
Oh yeah, that in the end, that Guno Saba Sambo Zang, Dabajo Konanya by Yenzang. And that Kansore, Tari, Yabakashi, Yana Tenjevi, and Tajoji Dansan To, Jaga with them were Bochetanja, Tina and Anatonga Sunday, Nimbotana Manova, Dinja watch the cha. Then I will go the Anita Carlos. Then I will go the Anirang Maluba, Ane Kasore, or Rangalam Mayuba, Ane Koe. 特别战士新把修，我是修过哇。他们这些把他把那产品去被战士新把修过，我修过哇。他呢，他忙不修毛个去，他的打给他说两句特别高的，你可以拼着了马下吧，马跟身边他们叫可以难了，你东啊什么的，俺大把点了，你都可以东啊来专为去都，他家那不样大把作为三节就恐怕人不去，进来就他把车，提起都你打차제 주목이 안에 다 가서래 실롱지 또 뒤에서 세냐 봐그 그런 조건 이제 반은 레바도한테 선발수 시제제
So then here we think the way we should approach this is by thinking, right now I've achieved a human life, and this human life is qualified with all kinds of excellent conditions. I have freedom to engage in practice, to do what I want to some degree, and I have also all of the necessities for living my life, and then also for practicing as well. But it's important not to be simply satisfied with having a pleasant kind of life and enjoying the pleasures that life provides. Rather, we need to think that this is a basis for entering into doing something higher, some higher objective, entering into a path that leads us into a higher direction. And then also, in addition to that, we need to think at this moment of opportunity that I've gained, I have, for this one time, I've met with the Dharma, the teaching of the Buddha, and not only the Dharma in general, but especially the Mahayana teaching. And within that, I've met with a master who is able to teach the entirety of the Dharma, not only the Mahayana Dharma, not only the sutra side, but the tantric side of it. And so in that way, I've achieved this extraordinarily valuable opportunity. Therefore, I shouldn't waste this opportunity by just striving for the pleasures of ordinary kinds of life, but rather should employ this moment of opportunity for some higher aim. And then, so with that attitude, and then on top of that thinking, for the sake of all sentient beings, I must achieve Buddhahood. And then with the thought that to the best of my ability, I'm going to try to understand these teachings and to the extent that I'm able to, and then apply them in practice so as to benefit myself and others. Then with that kind of attitude, then one listens to this brief instruction on the Mahamudra.
Oh yeah, 당에 가르쳐 그래서나 자대니보다 마체 아니 자대니 그 마시디 잠바 아니 대화시디 간라 계산 그 디나네 토토체 차단로 먹가체 차단나 두가 거예요 말이 저와 인상 토토치 마시기
So I'm going to teach a little bit about this subject. I'm not going to be able to go into it in all of the ramifications and details of it, but just kind of roughly go over some of the aspects of it. And the exposition here is based on the exposition that's given in by Kyetsong Rinpoche. And we'll touch on some of what he has to say, but not be able to go into all of it in detail.
Oh, yeah. That's our cola. Mahamudra, Kunja, Rashi Chajaji, Yemejera, Semji Doji, Jemba Doja, Chapter Trivici, Tamila Mishabla, Kuan Du said that Chava Java Dinari. That did to Jenjo, Java Tongri, the Ma Chayana, that didn't part Javana go to costume Dimi.
So if you have the Tibetan text of Kyetsong Rinpoche's exposition of this, it's on page 96. It has the first verse of the root text, which has the homage and the first and the homage.
Oh yeah, that country is an tiny Toma danger to be top draw Jabatang. Danger you know not to be Shabani. 당부대 단주지 집에 탑조와 제바데라 당부는 질 단주지 주다 마양 가수 봐와 연기 투모 많이 봐 디기 아니 디가 라마 코만 남제 남다 덤바 제베 차소 많이 먹고 신도 체 와 다지 디 샤네 샤시 년년 년주 제가라 아니 중국 강라 두바지 고고 요와 인장 아니 주바 칸데 영화래 세세나 와 다 지당 라미나 저기 유바텔라 런지다 니지 예배나네 런지 아니 넘바 도체 차는 마 유지 참자양 아니들 가서 루루야세 아니 미지와당 아니 저기 제주멜라라서 봐서 마 유바기 런지 찍체 是吧？但今年年纪大了，他爹妈送个多我年纪轻也有不的，哎呀，你讲嘛？
那跟你
你说？
你么说？
你在这个人？过去考试的。
考试啊。哦。
别听爱来了，别讲那里要嘛是吧？
啊，要嘛。So then, in order to engender confidence in the authority of the instruction, and to show that it's coming from an authentic source, and thus is reliable, then we need to express a little bit, mention just kind of briefly the way in which this was transmitted, this instruction was transmitted down to us. Here it originates with the Buddha Vajradhara, and then it was transmitted through the Buddha, from the Buddha through the master Nagarjuna, together with his spiritual son Aryadeva, and then it also was transmitted down through Indian masters, Indian adepts, and scholars. And then it also went down through lineage Jetsu-mila.
루루야산에 마스톤데 아니 지지 미지와네 마바네 멜란 마주바기 아니 주바린지 책체.
So one of the lineages then went down from Nagarjuna and Aryadeva initially through a sequence of masters into the master Maitripa, and then from Master Maitripa it was transmitted down to the master Marpa and Jetsu-milarepa, and that's one of the streams of transmission of this instruction.
Oh yeah, that's it. My tongue. And that you get la, and you can't go on my tongue. You get la, and that I don't around there. Or charging so then will do one each and I touch out the one and it is Jambayang. Jiji Jambayang and it a carasona, Jangolama Tonga or Chimbotang. And it's 断代减白结束。减白样个断代减白结束的，讲过那么张我全部了，你干了哪有完把的？俺的断代减白结束，断代减白结束，天天干了，俺的在哪里去个出去去了多些，我看是现在派出去去检查，派出去去检查跟检查，俺的出去去了多些。出去去多些呢，俺的在派出看守的，也是我路上出去。Then
another close transmission of this lineage, which is explained given actually in the prayer that we did earlier today, and basically it comes down again from the Buddha, from Buddha Shakyamuni to Manjushri, to Sri Manjushri, and then from Sri Manjushri it was transmitted down to the master Lord Tsongkhapa, and then also at the same time it was transmitted. I'm sorry, I just didn't get it. And then from Dodin Jamba Gyatso to Baso Chugi Gyatsen.
Donde Jambe Jason Pasu Church Gender. Pasu Church Gender in the Anne or Castle Sunjung Church Church to Church Doje, to Church Pasu Church Gender and to Church Doje.
Then he transmitted it to the great adept Chugi Dorje.
Oh, Church Doje, and it was yes, our chamber.
No.
Did what?
You get it. Oh, yeah. Gypsy Gending Gensen. Come on. Gypsy Jamoket.
This one.
Also, Chugi Gensen. Gypsy, oh, yeah. Gypsy Dharma Vajra.
Oh, then it, Gypsy Church Dojen, and it. Then
it was transmitted from him to Gyawa Ensapa Losang Dundrup and Kiru Sangye.
Oh, Kiru Sangye Yishe, Anita, Casore, Benjamin Chicken, body.
And then he transmitted in turn to Panchen Losang Chugi Gensen.
Oh, there is that Sunju Jela. 아니 장군나마 정화와 쳔벽이 안에 찾은 게 안에 가설에 무슨 만나봐 고르 gen산 상보라 안에 가설에 꼬도 나요 루지성과 마세 만나와체 되는 마셔 제가나다 샤네 샤지 년년마도 매바체 수주 샤네 샤지 년년마도 봐 매바체.
So then it said that Je Tsongkhapa didn't actually transmit this publicly or widely, but he transmitted it directly from his mouth to the ear of his disciple, and that this was transmitted in that way for a number of generations. That is, it was not transmitted in a kind of openly textual-based way of teaching, but rather was transmitted from one mouth to the next disciple's ear, and so on through the sequence.
Oh yeah, 치수 안에 가서래 돈대 재배 제조라 아니 장고나마 정가와 첨복이 마세 와 아니 장고나마 정가와 첨복이 아니 돈대 재배 가서 장고나마 정가 첨복라 돈대 재배 제조 마세 아니 돈대 재배 제조기 아니 파수 체지제라나
So then he transmitted
this one.
No, in turn, from Je Tsongkhapa transmitted it directly to Dokten Jampal Gyatso, and then it went down, was transmitted in that way from mouth to ear.
아니 파수 체지 전쟁이 아니 주진 최도제는 아닌바래 주진 최도제데 아니 가서래 대송하나 제가나 감네 아니 암도 아니 어때 니 아니야 암도 가서를 반주 현반이 아니 야 세상을 치디가라 아니 남가라 아니 총바대 아니 파수치 전쟁이 시니 아니 보고디 파수치 전쟁 제전에 아니 파수치 전쟁 소장 나잖아요 아니 제라 아니 주저치 도제라 나야 말이야 아니 고소면서
바수치기가 진이 암도
파수치 전쟁체 파수치 전쟁은 아니 주저치 도제를 맞지 봐라 봐 대 주저 최저제 영화에 대 간디스 동화를 도면에 삼민이 유수소에 랑가라 깨워기 아니 시와지 부고대 아니 간내는 손에 아니 대타 바주 최지 전쟁에 답을 쬐니 제네 아니 바주 최지 전쟁에 아니 지든 도들라 아니 차진 그때 많아 이 말에 하고서 야 맞네 접지 최도지 간데도 중앙에 세나 담보대 이리와 도면에 사상원라 아니 삼민이 아니 내고라야 두디강라 아니 부구지 깨네 부구대 아니 내년도 손이대 아니 파수치 이제 답을 껴야지 와 답을 껴네 아니 야나 론비강라 아니 파수치 이제 네 가소래 차쟁이 마 유바도 많아요 말에 내가
두천 치기도지디
차쟁고
So then the way it was transmitted from Baso Chugi Gensen to Drupchen Dharma Vajra or Chugi Dorje is that there were these two pilgrims who came from Amdo, and they came to Lhasa, and the wife gave birth to a child, and in turn gave that child to Baso Chugi Gensen to care for. And then as that child grew up, he became Drupchen Chugi Dorje or Dharma Vajra, and he was then given this instruction of Mahamudra.
Oh yeah, didn't Drupchen Chugi Dorje 아니 제라 아니 차진 대 냠수 제와라 때네 아니 체질라 순수고 공방 예대 꿀리마 방바라 아니 엄바조바 상제니 아니 꿀리대 아니 단디 봐도야 정말 하리스니 리지와디 디나라 아니 슈네 간에 가사다달라 자와기 로지텐제야 이 말에.
So then also Drupchen Chugi Dorje was able to, through this instruction and practice, was able to achieve the state of integration, complete Buddhahood within a single lifetime, and without giving up his body in that life. And so then there's stories about how that his body remains. Is that right? No. Did you get that? No.
최도저게 아니 구성원도 자와 연사와 쳐보라나 다시 나시체. 그러나 자와 연사와 쳐배 아니 계루산제 이시라 많아. 계루산제 대양 안에 지는 년에 기반만도 아니 매화체. 아니 계루산제 이시게 아니 변제로서 취지 제절 많아些. 아니 변제로서 취지 제절게 아니라 년지 아니 이거 거바데 아니 도스온 거래 자전다 연주.
So then Drupchen Chugi Dorje again transmitted this after he achieved Buddhahood and became a fully awakened Buddha. He transmitted this directly to Gelug Ensapa Losong Drindup, and then in turn that he transmitted it to Kedup Sangye Yeshe, and then he in turn transmitted it to Panchen Losong Chugi Gensen. And that was then Panchen Losong Chugi Gensen was the first master to actually place this instruction in writing, to write it down.
어제 된다 왜 연주돼 다 도스 마지 좀 있지니 와 아니 다중에 도시에 봐 규바 콩도 가서래 차소 많이 바꿔와 신도 체스 규바 콩도 파도 안에 차념지 해 마시바 규바 지랍전도 따와 당서 봐도 안에 담지 냐바다 그라 마셔봐 유바 칠랍전도 또 와당 최단 최전바 니가라 이제 남다기 안에 대발 현주도 째와당 퇴상 공수지 고름소 내라 아나 고아 차베 아니 람 공바라 주술라 캐와 주와
So then, by hearing this, the way in which a treatise like this, a system of practice like this, has been transmitted, and in the way in which it has descended to us in this special, unique kind of oral transmission from master to master, then this is something that is a practice that has not, and showing that it is a practice that has not deteriorated in the interim down to this time, to our time. There's a big purpose, important purpose in explaining that. It shows that the lineage of transmission has an authoritative source, and that it hasn't been contaminated by any kind of defilement, especially from any kind of deviation in the practice during the process of transmission. And because it's not been adulterated with anything impure, then it still preserves within it a pure and powerful kind of ability to bless and empower us to actualize it so as to achieve realization of it. And we can understand that through hearing this exposition of the source. And then likewise, by understanding this, it will give rise within us as into pure faith and confidence in both the Dharma itself, this teaching, as well as those who preserve and transmit it to us. And then likewise, it enables us to understand and fulfill all of the essential points of the path of hearing the teaching, reflecting upon it, and meditating upon it as well. So this kind of approach to explaining some kind of teaching on the account of the lives of the masters who transmitted it has great purpose.
Oh yeah, 담바 벤진로상 최전이 파도다. 단다 rinjidan 유진이가 아다니 요비나네. 아니 당고는 뭐 정거와 전부기 신경 아니 뭐지 담바 개와 담바 수장 짜와 머니 버기 아니 투모다 투모 많이 배람지 까네세 가라 안에 따와 어디 가서래 찾은 거 따와 오메 따와 다 투모 많이 바까네 용서 좋아 싸와 제바기 뉴지디 아니 지지 제배야라 지지 제배야는 마지 병아마기 따라봐 배 가서래 따와 투지를 충대 아니 등에잖아 잠네 아니 초초야 마셔봐 아니 배 데리 가서 가와지도 냥잖아 쇼요와 데리 총요와르데 등등 가와서 자주요와 등지 따와 대한 따와 남다 마인바데 아니 지지 잼배양게 투려 준비 따와데 남다 인배스 남다 인만 저 건디 시위 간라 남다 마인 손이 아니 다 하다나마 인매도치 예레미 샤라 초소 드바장 남신의 도바지 영어 숨바 나신 전에 아니 다 초사 두장한 배디 아니 유루에서기 숑라 아니 가서래 퇴산 출신도 때난 바와기 아니 따와 남다 뒤다지 순거래
So then the way this instruction actually originated, the initial oral instruction of it was transmitted from Lord Manjushri into the ear of Lord Tsongkhapa. And the way this developed was that Je Tsongkhapa was concerned that it was seeking to achieve a pure kind of view of Mahamudra or Madhyamaka. And so that when he was seeking this, he came to the conclusion that the way in which the view was being explained in Tibet by some of the earlier masters was not pure and correct. That is, he came to the conclusion that some of these masters had engaged in a lot of meditative concentration, and as a result of their meditative concentration alone had come up with various kinds of views that were not absolutely correct. And some of them had achieved certain kinds of realizations through meditation, but that they, in the expression of these realizations, they presented forms of the view that were not pure and correct. So he realized that Je Tsongkhapa realized that without properly purifying oneself, first of all, purifying oneself of all negativities through the practices that do that, as well as accumulating a vast store of merit, then there's absolutely no way in which a person can generate the correct view, even if you engage in a lot of meditation. So out of that kind of concern, then he requested from Sri Manjushri an explanation of the correct view.
Oh yeah, da rinju da ni yoni nane ani ji benjalo da chuje genzen bado ani nyewar juba ani nyenju isi kana nyenju sewa ani kaso shane nawar juba jina jidu juba o tene o tene kaso benjalo da chuje genzen ki ani nyenju juba de ani da 차정기 단대당 라마 쳐봐도 아니 이걸 커봐자봐 다 되네 손데 아니 알아서기 안다 냠내용이야 줘야 돼 다견지 벤저로서 최유전자가 이거 아니 이게 돌아봐 아니 바바나 말했더니 총화이장 아니 다 저대 가서를 벤저로서 최전에 마주 송아이
So then this was transmitted then, as we said, from Manjushri to Je Tsongkhapa, and then in a purely a verbal form from the mouth of a master to the ears of disciples through multiple generations, and it was transmitted in that way, strictly, until it arrived to Panchen Losang Chugi Gensen. And he then realized that it was now time to write this down. So he wrote it down in the root text, as well as his own commentary to the root text that he wrote. And likewise in the Guru Puja, Lama Chipa as well, he wrote these teachings down. And then, so in this way, then he did that, wrote them down so for people of subsequent generations, and it has been transmitted in these written forms down to the present generations.
Oh yeah, that did the reason to Jesus young, more Zillion, more Zillion that Chila Chiti. 아니 타바코마 찔려 저기 오마나 마 주디 간래 찔려 메트로 같은 데 많이 봐. 품바 간지 품동 좋았다 보면 미용 봐. 품바 동반에 동바질래 누가看요 말아 봐. 없텐지야 미용 봐. 품바 3번에 람바 잡아시 거진에 주디. 년주디 라마 코마 탐제 니 차전당 아니 라마 쳐발라데 년주디 아니 두지 가서 투모면 두지 뭐 담바 디코나라 때네 차전그 담바 디코나라 때네 탐보 아니 차전그 때 요지 차자 사무 동반이 때라 파발라 때네 사무 동반이 또바기 아니 가서래 체면 요도 주로 길라 때네 동반이라 메베 아니 시내주 길라 때네 아니 시라 손대 텀니 어디서도 담바 딜라고 디코나레 때나 돈이라 미비 티바치비 시라 손대지 나종고 손도 잡아 샤다데 대다 지바 친랍견도 또네 아니 말한도 있나야 아니 당화 준비고네 냐나 년바대지 이나 퇴와 좀 얘기야 아니 고스 핀지로 와라 싸워 그 누가 신도 쳐봐래 그래서 내도
Page 95. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, so then, So this was transmitted then in that way down through the generations from master to master, and the master Chugi Gensen, Losang Chugi Gensen, seeing that it was time to write it down, he wrote down the both the root text and the commentary in writing. And this is, if we think of that, we should consider that because of that, he has been extremely kind to us, and for those of us who are fortunate enough to hear these teachings, we've received something that's extremely precious. Likewise, the way this has been transmitted down to us is such that it's like pouring a pure, precious substance. And earlier masters have esteemed this kind of teaching as being like the nectar of immortality, a pure kind of substance that's able to transform us into to a kind of deathless state. And so the way that this has been transmitted is not sort of like by taking, if you think about how something precious is transmitted from one source to another, it's not being like you take an empty pot and you try to pour something from that empty pot, you pour it into another empty pot. Then, of course, nothing is transmitted at all. There's just, it's not being transmitted. Rather, if you have a pot or a vase which is full to the brim with a kind of precious substance, and then it's poured into the next pot, which is also a suitable receptacle for that, then that kind of transmission takes place in the proper and pure fashion. So this kind of oral transmission of the Mahamudra teachings has been transmitted through the generations in the same exact way. It's dependent upon this instruction alone that it's used for through understanding emptiness. Again, Nyamaso. Because tumun docha.
tumun dochi nangola ngaranzo nangola 아니 가르레서나 담바디 코나를 때네 차정이 담바디 코나를 때네 토마 아니 사모동반이 때라 법 아니 사모동반이 때라 법발라 되는 돈이는 몇 비시네게 대라 때나 상도진이 실학송전을 게니 아니 순대지 나 정도도 잡아 샤자래 돈이는 몇 비실학송전 오늘 잡아 샤자래
So then if we look at the way in which this works is that this special oral transmission, for all of the previous lamas within it, even for them, as they've been seen in sort of a common way by their disciples, it appears that based solely upon this instruction, that they were able to develop and actualize solely based on this instruction, that they were able to actualize the yoga which joins together both meditative stabilization or shamatha and insight meditation within the
유바데 칠랍전도 또네 아니도 말한도 아니 최년도 때에 당외 군내란데냐 아니 퇴와 잠지야 아니 가서래 고수 친질라 와라 되네 친질라 와라 아니 가서래 누가 시도 쳐와래서
So then they were able to these masters were then able to develop the Mahayana integration of meditative stabilization and insight meditation, which is focusing on emptiness. So this sequence of instruction is special in that one starts off by using emptiness as one's object, develops meditative stabilization or shamatha based on that, and then out of that, then one develops in turn insight and conjoins the two together and coordinating them such that they cooperate. And so this is a special kind of way of developing that kind of realization. And this the transmission of this in this way has special empowering blessings to enable those who follow it to gain that kind of realization. So if we listen to that, having understood that it does have that kind of power to engender that kind of realization within ourselves, and if we listen to it with confidence and faith, then simply by listening to the instruction alone, we develop we have a special kind of ability and to be empowered in terms of our body, speech, and mind, so as to be able to realize it.
Oh yeah. 고소 신기라에 누가 신도 쳐봐래. 된다인다 다 되네. 아니 주도지 저와 첨부 남께와나 땡땡지라 주도 그 저와 첨부 깨와나 다 땡지용어 간데스레잖아. 강라 주비 차와. 좀 땡지용어 셔봐. 잠발을 주고 교황과 와송에 변하네. 아니 쳐봐 다 준다가랬다. 너무 마문자야. 군제라신 찾아지 유면제라 셈지도 지인. gembardeja chapter 2 an dame lame shabla ani kuwe du da namo shewane chachalo mani chebo mudani chacha wa kuncha se gana ani 가서래 군 차오 se gana 갑디 chacha 요지 chacha 아니 아랑신지 동바디 아니 치다나기 참 뒤제다 뒤마치지 쳐 꾼래 아니 차바나 군접 와 군제 랑신세가 쳐 군제 랑신데 간데제래 세나 아니 랑신을 팀에려봐 마셔봐 동바니 랑신지 동배 랑신 아니 랑신레 군제 랑신 차자 세와네 아니 다른 메롱게 터라 주고 와래 왔다 찾아시 사와나시 전에 좀 된데지 낭바시 인치자라 아니 가서 뒤셔탐자 믿어봐 사제탐자 동아와 최탐자 동신 담에 봐뒤 양알랜다와 시와 세야데 니켈령거와 담메롱아 그 찾아세 자보기 가탐 아니 가라 럼비 담메롱아 나신 전에 뒤선 거예요 와 당연히 자와지 권한도 쉬워지나 군지라시 찾아체 예매지 찾아체에서 찾아대라 아니 유지 찾아당 유전지 찾아니 예배나네 유전지 찾아대 아니 유동반 예당 아니 유전 현재지 대화 준비 이시 예매도 소위 이시디 유전지 찾아래 어떤데 대화다 동바 예매제비 이시티 대도 예매테 저바단 차와 대도 예매 돈용 모습도 도비 이시티게 돈용 모습도 카도수 간지래 사나 아니 다 저바단 차와 부람가모 사지 잡아 부람가모래 아주 간지래 매 아니 비신스바게 차위 식자 잘 간절히 해서는 저바고 안 하신 전에 저바단 차와 인상 예민제자 semjidochi ing sere semjidochi ini 아니 semjidochi 세와데 아니 다 유만현지집에 여사 셈 어디라 샤쇼거래 유만현지집에 여사 sem지도지 유동반이 내외 여사 셈지 된자위 유지 차자 아니 사모동반 예당 유전지 차자 유동반 예당 유전 내가 준비 이신이 이 매제비 아니 가서래 유전 그 찾아 왜 대니 오데 점발 된제 아니 잡다 주지 담에 라면샤가 그게 사지다 대도야 그래서 나 마티 와라 마티 그래 대화 좀 그래 야 안에 협조 있잖아 돼
So then, as far as the actual meaning of the text, the treatise here, if one explains that, then there's the activities of engaging in the composition, the actual explanation of the instruction which has been composed, and then the dedication of the merit that arises from the composition of the text. At the very first of these has to do with an expression of homage or worship, and then there's a promise to compose the text. So the first of these, that is the expression of homage, is found in the first verse, where it says, Namo Mahamudraya. And then the first verse follows from that. So Namo means homage, Maha it means great, Mudraya is to the Mahamudra, and then the verse itself says it's all pervasive. It's the nature of everything, Mahamudra. Mahamudra is the all-pervasive nature of everything. It is the sphere of the Vajra of mind, which is indivisible and free from expression or inexpressible. One could say ineffable. And then the last two lines of the verse say, I respectfully bow down to the feet of the peerless Lama, who is the Lord of Siddhas or of adepts, the overlord who teaches this sphere of the mind Vajra in a unobscured fashion, or literally teaches it nakedly without any kind of covering or obscuration to it. And so to break down this verse, the different parts of it, all pervasive refers then to this nature of Mahamudra as pervading the entirety of all phenomena, whether one's talking about phenomena that are created or uncreated phenomena. This Mahamudra pervades the entirety of all phenomena whatsoever. And likewise, it's the nature of everything. Again, external and internal phenomena. It is the basic nature of them. Mahamudra, then in the Tibetan and the verse. Then Mahamudra, Maha means great. Mudra literally means seal. And so the example there is that like when a king makes us seal something, then the ministers and so forth can't violate that seal. They have to follow whatever the command which is found within that document that is sealed in that way. And then similarly to that, the Lord Buddha taught the four seals of phenomena, that all created things are impermanent, that all contaminated things are of the nature of suffering, that all phenomena are selfless and empty, and then that nirvana is peace. So that instruction of the four seals of the Dharma is similar to, is using the term seal in an analogous way that seal is being used here. But where it says it's indivisible, it means that, again, this nature of Mahamudra is inseparable in the sense that emptiness and
Yeme said, Irme Ba said, you don't buy Nidang, and you can, and a Dutch machine or Irme Ba.
So where it says indivisible, it's referring to the fact that emptiness and the gnosis of great bliss are indivisible in the sense that they're fused or homogenized into a single entity without any being undifferentiable in that way. And then where it says it's inexpressible, it can't be expressed in words. The examples that are given there are if someone says sugar is sweet, and then you can hear those words, but unless you taste the sugar, you don't have that experience of the sweetness. You you've heard the words, but you don't know what sweet really means. Or likewise with fire, someone says fire burns. If you've never actually experienced the sensation of burning from the fire, then there's no, you don't know what those words mean. So likewise with this inseparable fusion of great bliss and emptiness, it's inexpressible in the sense that it can't be directly experienced through the medium of language or words. So then it's the sphere of the mind vajra that is again saying the same thing about emptiness. Here the subject, which is cognizing emptiness, and the object, emptiness itself, are fused together inseparably, and that is expressed by the term of the sphere of the mind vajra here. And so this will all be explained later in the commentary.
Mahamudra chacha che se tajunga rewa shuwa imba da dinala de sundwa dubi jinja kan chökün de mali ba chache chökün de mali ba cheme yinzu chabasa da goro resha ya chökün ane rangsin ji tomba ane kunje rangsin ji nelu tomba ni rangsin chökün ji ane rangsin tadu de nelu tomba ni re 가양 텔라 미다바이나 라시지 동반이를 마다바이나 찾아래스 라시지 동반이 또나 초도 쳐봐지 아니 그 대단 난도에 예매바세가 라시지 동반이다 의견 이시 이거지 뒤 남도에 예와매바 와 된다와데 아니 다도 그 잡아다 트레베 아니 섬지도 지레 스타지 대도와 디라시 치마나바 타바 Rashi de Chimana Basabasa, Simji Rashi Tadu de Nelutombani, Rashi Chimasan, the Dula Poguare, or Rashi Chimaku Nabatabi, Chi Tatu Te, Anita, Dibjari, Jambar, Musum to Ane Tula Chashin, Tony Musum to Tula Chashin. ane toni ngosum to tola chashi bi ngane nyamje ngochi ba yinza xian la gu da songji ka so gu songge su ta ta ba zebe ane da riki da bo se te ba gu ja riki da bo chu ba de o ten da wa de ane o da chaje dem ga lama de la su song ya.
So the commentary then explains the verse also, and it is explained so as to engender faith in the part of the disciples, and to also to eliminate any kind of obstacles to the completion of the composition. So then this verse is explained in the commentary as well. It says, all phenomena, which all here refers to in the entirety, without any kind of exception, without any kind of differentiation, they're pervaded in their entirety by this nature of things, which is emptiness. And then the word which says the nature of all, again, is referring to the basic way in which things exist, which is as emptiness. And because it's something that one can't go beyond in any way whatsoever, it's called a mudra, or a seal. And if one understands that properly, it makes one into such a cognizer or person into the supreme state, and therefore it's great. So a great seal, or Mahamudra. And since the gnosis, which understands that, is at the resultant state, the achievement at the achievement of Buddhahood, that gnosis is at no time whatsoever separated from that object, Mahamudra. The object and the cognizing subject are indistinguishably fused in that without any kind of alteration. That gnosis is something which can't be expressed through language or understood conceptually as it actually is. And thus, it is the mind vajra of great bliss. So that's glossing that expression of separate from expression or language. And this nature of things is, or the nature of that Mahamudra is the ultimate sphere of phenomena, which is the total purity in the sense that they're completely free from any kind of stains. That nature is unstained in the sense that it's always and it has never been contaminated by the stains of existing as it appears, things exist as if they're objectively established or intrinsically existent, but this dharma dhatu or sphere of phenomena is always separate from that kind of existence, being intrinsically existent. And so that, when it's completely free, so then the last line says that when that appears in one's dipta jumper,
oh yeah,
no, dipta jumper, dipta jumper, to tuksu char. Oh, so the Lama then, who has understood this without any kind of obscuration and has nakedly perceived it directly, without any covering or obscuration whatsoever, and who appears by means of the body and speech of the holy body and speech, and teaches it to us and others. This is the Lama that's mentioned in the verse, the Reverend Lama that is the master of Siddhas, who is the Lord of all of the lineages and who teaches this in that way.
Oh yeah, that kansamure 다시 찾아서 시와이바 로 찾아서 간다와 아니 대 가서 뼈지 찾았다마나 방지 텔랍니다 와나시 찾았다베 태양 안에 관한 유함에 따야 거야 참보 뭐위내서 이긴 거와 어때 대별라 하샤니 안에 다 네값이 찾았어야 돼 다시 시와 나신지 안에 다자 그때 뭐 투지 전지 전주 남지 강람 다른 메자비 시대 가래서나 시 안에 대바니 세가라 야게 두바랑고 올라 또베 땅아 세가라 시 군족지 담발라 민다와지당 전담지 담발라 민다바 군족 샤디 잠바 아니 전담데 라시지 추바이 라시지 담바 저도마 좀미도 와다 라시지 담바 저도 가라 타녀도 자제 제바도 좀미도 바 텐저 많이 봐 군족 담바다 전담비 담발라 마다와 인장 아니 요 시대반이지 인수지 뒤위 아니 담바 시대반이지 아니 담부때라 파바 인자 디 토네 아니 따와가다지 찾아시 있어야 돼 가나 뒤제 탐제 미다바 사제 탐제 동아와 최 탐제 동신 다음에 봐 양알렌 대와 시와 세가 최지도 시대인 말이
So then, as far as the mudra here, the seal, again, when we, as we said, then a seal is something that you place upon something to show that it's authentic, or that it is something that is not to be transgressed. So the ordinary word, the word seal, has those connotations in ordinary usage of signifying that something is authentic, or certifying that it's not something to be transgressed. And likewise, Similarly here, then, the teaching here as the foundation of it is the two realities, phenomenal reality and ultimate reality. Phenomenal reality indicates that things exist, they function, and they operate in relation to one another, and that they arise from causes and produce effects and so forth. And then the ultimate reality is their absence of any kind of intrinsic nature, that they're completely devoid of any kind of independent, autonomous, or non-contingent character. So those two reality or dimensions of reality are such that they don't, when the Buddha teaches them, he teaches them such that they don't conflict with one another. That is, he shows how the two aspects of reality or two dimensions of reality cooperate with each other and are not in conflict, such that when he teaches that things are empty of intrinsic existence, he doesn't, at the same time, preclude them being able to engage in relationships and function properly with one another in that way. And on the opposite side, likewise, when he shows how causality operates, that cause and effect are infallible in that way, then he doesn't do so in a way that prevents one from understanding the emptiness of things, that they're devoid of any kind of intrinsic nature. So those two realities serve as a foundation or basis. And then this is, the Lord Buddha taught us this by means of the four seals of phenomena, that all created things are impermanent, that all contaminated things are of the nature of suffering, and that all phenomena are selfless and empty, and that nirvana is peace.
我真正印象，对这他们家没大把，是对这他们家举荐了几十没大把印象，安尼让举荐了这些各几把，这一直咱把安尼啥家就去他们家，安尼东啊哇，啥家就去他们家东啊哇太阳，安尼对这因呗，安尼让个举荐去接吧，让个举荐开始来，咱安尼连月来接吧，这个东啊没得那，安尼就。 안에 내년이 오대 빵고고 여와 인상 안에 내년이 오대 안에 가서래 빠투하지 심지랑실라 안 내년이 오대 주 내년이 오대 빵투바데 가래라서나 내다 니몬데 심지랑실라 마슈바 심지 주마다 자루 인바테 어디가 가 최담제 동신 담에바 세티된 거래 缺他们家东西咱们把人家让些就没住把人家连夜女我点甚至让些了没修吧，甚至让些了没就把人甚至吃什么当插入人吧，甚至什么当插入人家吃没年不让什么让些就住在这边年不的，俺那大没多别落也把人家，大没多别落。 다음에 또 별로 림바 신도 관계라 되네 심지 치마 아니 체중도 친데 타를 치마단 차와지 용구여와 인자 아니 양알래 대와 시바 전에 두 성원에 뒤에 탐제 미다바 사제 탐제 동아와 치어 탐제 동시 다음에바 양알래 대와 시바 세디 마람지 심지티 띵도 주론지 여와 인자 어디라 아니 따와 가다 그 차차시 전에 다 주송
So then the four seals that we've just mentioned, to expound on them, elaborate on them a little bit, then the first of these is that all created things are impermanent. We can see that all things that are created, that is, that arise due to their own specific causes and conditions, are impermanent. They undergo change, and then within that, likewise, things that are contaminated are also created by causes and conditions. That is, in that case, contaminated things in particular are generated or produced by their specific causes and conditions, which are karma and the mental afflictions. And if we understand how this operates with respect to the mind, it is the case that the mind can be temporarily obscured or contaminated by karma and mental afflictions, But this obscured or contaminated nature of the mind doesn't enter into contaminated character of the mind does not enter into the very nature of the mind. The third of the four Dharma seals is that all phenomena, including all created phenomena, are selfless and impermanent. Selfless and empty. So that applies equally to the mind, and so the basic nature of the mind is that it's empty of having any kind of intrinsic nature that would fix it in a contaminated state. And that thus entails, likewise, that the mind is such that, as its fundamental nature, it's suitable to be separated from the adventitious defilement of karma and the mental afflictions. And then, therefore, the third seal, that all phenomena, including the mind, are empty and selfless, that shows that the mind is such that it can be freed from, it can in fact be freed from the temporary defilement of the contaminating karma and mental afflictions, and thus that in turn establishes that the mind has as its nature the ability to actualize nirvana, the cessation of these adventitious defilements that defile it temporarily, and therefore that one has the capacity to be able to actualize the fourth of the four Dharma seals, that nirvana is peace. One can actualize that cessation of the contamination.
Oh, yeah, 아니 가다 권대지 지지 조어되라 아니 다와가다지 차장 티난에다 조어되 아니 최 탐제 라신지 동배 동반이 동반이 그내서 동이 조탄 그내서탕 텐저의 동반이 아니 유도 제박의 지롱기 셈이네 셈달라야 아니 이시라바당 이시 차와라 소와기 아니 셈이네 수탕 아니 대니我天这有的有些你我的有当把你的有些当你都比一些你我听你路线上满着我住我得看说嘞，住街出什么的，是吧？出什么的，俺那唱了蛮多话的，俺给点研究的，俺那看说嘞，确实当明说的啊。
So then, among the four seals, then chief of them, if we separate out the third of these, that all phenomena are selfless and empty, this refers then to the entirety of phenomena. All things, both created and uncreated, are characterized by this nature of being empty of intrinsic existence. If we take that Dharma instruction there is transmitted in the course of this particular instruction here today that we're studying today, and it's been transmitted according to that oral transmission down to the present through the Ganden oral transmission lineage. And it's established in a complete and non-erroneous fashion, having in all respects.
Oh yeah, that didn't cause all the children changing you with the that you never said that you try to you don't want you down and you cause all the can't 东西太当东把你我也没把当。东北你当太东北有些也没把你小孩玩把的，去年当俺呢也没说几甚至多节的了，西南这什么钱呢？西那个是甚至多节，南边那个是甚至多节，俺呢这边那个是甚至多节真的是吧？你这他妈呢去年当我也没把个甚至让心写的了，甚至让心去年当我也没有把甚至生活上给我的了。 前来把马修行，你路不及解决让把希望当西容的，你许多个什么事上马上就解决，你我大看的是啥为啥个什么的，许多个为啥个什么的，什么多些下小关吧的， Yeah.
So then this
ngārāntu jī samjā tamjā la nyūma lhānjī jīwē sā kā samjā rāñchā chī yuwa rā wā rāpa lūpū bī samchī tāng tā tī ngā tāng tēnī shā kū wā yīn tāng nyūma lhānjī jīwē sā kā samchī kā nī yuwa yīn tāng yuwa sā kā sam tāng yuwa sā kā sam rāshī jī tōngpa nī wā tā ngō yé mē bā yuwa rā wā tēn rā wā tērā samjī yuwa sā kā sam tāng yuwa sā kā tīng sam kā chū nī kā nī rā tīmē lē pā mā shū shīng lūpūjī tīmē ane kāsi chēchī rāpātāng shī nēkā su shī rūma rā mā tu shīwā mē bāchā tēnē lāmjī nēkā su rīmjī shī nī tār tēwī nēkā su ane shīwā tiongā rā wā yīnzā shī rūma kī sēm shī tū jī tsēm jī tōchī yīn sī rī kāna shī hōng.
So now, with respect to the term in the initial verse, which is the mind vajra, this mind vajra can be explained in three different ways, with reference to the basal state, the path, and the resultant state. Those three: basal state, path, and resultant state. If we apply this in the context of Tantra, then we would say that the basal state, mind vajra, is the constant mind of connate luminosity which exists within sentient beings without any beginning, and that connate luminosity it has as its very nature, its final nature, its emptiness, its absence of intrinsic existence, lack of intrinsic existence. And that final nature of the mind, of the constant mind of connate luminosity, and the emptiness of it are indistinguishably fused. That is, they're inseparably fused without any kind of beginning. But in the basal state, then, that kind of mind exists in various forms. Sometimes it's more or less obscured, more or less affected by adventitious defilement. But even when it is in the basal state and is greatly disturbed or contaminated by adventitious defilement, the adventitious defilements themselves don't enter into and don't actually contaminate, don't adulterate the basic nature of that constant mind of connate luminosity. And therefore, they're suitable to be separated. The adventitious defilements are suitable to be separated from that mind vajra.
인자 개동배 내가서 안에 가서 라조 심지랑신 예사와고 세야기 심지랑신 예사와 세야디 심지랑신 고야데 가르래서나 심경오라 심지랑신 샤야지 심기딩기 춘이라 심지랑신 샤야지 왜이당 심기딩기 춘이당 심랑경오 니가라 안에 라신지 주위레바 마슈 rāngshīn tīmē lēpā māshū tā, lūpū jī tīmē lēpā māshū bā yīnzāng, anī kō sīm jī tīmā tāng tā rū yā wā yīnzāng, sīm jī rāngshīn yuwa sā wā wō sē tēng bā dē.
Sīm jī chūnī tāng, sīm jī tīki chūnī tāng.
Sīm jī ngō tāng, sīm jī chūnī, sīm khurāng kī ngō tāng, sīm jī chūnī kā, sīm jī ngō lā yā sīm jī rāngshīn sē, sīm jī chūnī lā yā sīm jī rāngshīn sē. So
then this is explained likewise within the 8,000 line Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, where it says, O Subhuti, the nature of the mind is luminous. There we can understand that line of the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra in two ways. That is, the nature of the mind, here the term nature can be understood in two senses. One is sort of like the basic character of the mind is luminous, and that basic luminosity of the mind can also be, is itself not intrinsically or innately defiled or adulterated, actually, is not adulterated with the adventitious defilements So we can read it in that way. And then likewise, the final nature of the mind, the emptiness, the ultimate nature of the mind, if we read it that way, the nature of the mind, the ultimate nature of the mind is luminosity. We would also say in the same way that that basic nature of the mind, final, ultimate nature of the mind, that aspect of luminosity is not adulterated with any kind of adventitious defilements. No. We'll stop there for now.
시베지 조심해도 당, 这让人家讲，三界心都没。